Is the IDF the world's most moral army?
Absolutely. Hands down.
Being the most moral, the most ethical army in the whole world.
One can make the argument they're the most ethical and moral army that has ever existed.
I think they've gone further than any other country, any other military that I've seen in taking such steps to stop the deaths of innocent civilians.
And they went through everything in order to avoid killing civilian people.
Does more to safeguard the rights of civilians in a combat zone than any other army in the history of warfare.
My name is Yahya Mohammed. I'm an Israeli, I'm an Arab, I'm a Muslim, and I'm a proud soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces. But I was greeted with open arms, treated with nothing but respect and admiration.
Israel's intention to continue fighting until it destroys...
לא תשתוק מול מי שתוקף אותנו.
That's Rafah. Rafah's been flattened.
חיים ומשגשגים. יש שם גורמים באיחוד הזה.
Amputuje się rączkę. Izrael dokonuje na naszych oczach ludobójstwa ze szczególnym okrucieństwem. Izrael to nowa trzecia Rzesza i jego flaga powinna wyglądać dokładnie tak.
The Holocaust was one of the worst atrocities in human history. 6 million Jews were murdered under the regime of Adolf Hitler. Entire families were erased, communities disappeared. And it wasn't random. It was systematic, industrial, planned. Entire populations were tracked, categorized, and transported using state systems, railways, records, identification numbers, all turned into tools of destruction. After the world saw what happened, it made a promise. Never again. Not just for one group, but as a warning for all of humanity. So why are people today using that same history to describe Israel? Is this a warning or a misunderstanding? To understand that, we have to go back further than World War II. Back to the late 1800s. Zionism was a political movement with one main goal, to create a Jewish homeland. But it wasn't just about land. It was about security, identity, and survival in a world where Jews were often treated as outsiders. At the time, Jews across Europe faced discrimination, violence, and exclusion. There were pogroms in Eastern Europe and widespread anti-Semitism across the continent. In some places, Jews were restricted from owning land, holding certain jobs, or even living in certain areas. One of the key figures behind this movement was Theodor Herzl. He believed Jews would never truly be safe as minorities, and that the solution was a state of their own. The place many Zionists focused on was Palestine. Not just for political reasons, but also historical and religious ones. But Palestine was not empty. It was home to Arab Muslims, Christians, and Jews living under the Ottoman Empire. Communities had lived there for generations with their own identities, traditions, and ties to the land. Two groups with different histories were now looking at the same land. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and Britain took control of Palestine. Britain made multiple promises. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration supported the idea of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, but it also stated that nothing should prejudice the rights of existing non-Jewish communities. At the same time, Arab leaders believed they were being promised independence for helping fight against the Ottomans.
The Balfour Declaration, yeah. So that was kind of, what, during World War I?
Correct. Yeah, so the British Empire, at the start, before World War I even started, was looking on how it could partition the Ottoman Empire.
And as Jewish immigration increased in the following decades, tensions grew, clashes broke out. Riots, protests, and violence between communities became more frequent in the 1920s and 1930s. By the time World War II ended, the situation was already unstable. After World War II and the Holocaust, global support for a Jewish state increased dramatically. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states.
In 47, when the UN makes the vote, gives 45% of the land to a Palestinian state and 55% of the land to a Jewish state.
Jewish leaders accepted the plan. Arab leaders rejected it. In 1948, Israel was declared a state. War followed almost immediately. For many Jews, it meant survival, a homeland, and protection. For Palestinians, it meant displacement. Hundreds of thousands fled or were forced from their homes. Villages were emptied and communities were broken. They call this the Nakba, or catastrophe. Some Palestinians ended up in refugee camps in neighboring countries. Others remained in Gaza and the West Bank.
Arabs very loudly say we reject the UN partition plan. So in 1948, the Israelis launched an offensive campaign and attacked and invaded Palestine militarily. I think the fight completely caught them off guard. And then the Israelis did a massacre. They actually did multiple massacres. One of them was at a place called Deir Yassin, and they just went in with machetes and chopped the Palestinians to pieces.
Many of those families are still displaced today. War followed between Israel and neighboring Arab states. Israel survived and expanded its territory beyond what was originally proposed in the UN plan. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel captured territories including the West Bank and Gaza. From that point on, many began to see Israel not only as a state, but as an occupying power. And over the decades, that occupation became one of the most debated issues in global politics. Palestinians faced restrictions on movement, checkpoints, and military presence. Tensions continued to rise. In the late 1980s, a Palestinian uprising known as the First Intifada began. Years later, a second uprising followed. Violence increased on both sides. In the 1990s, there were attempts at peace.
On behalf of the United States and Russia, co-sponsors of the Middle East peace process, welcome to this great occasion of history and hope.
The Oslo Accords created a framework for a possible two-state solution, but that solution has never fully materialized. In 2005, Israel withdrew its settlements from Gaza, but it maintained control over borders, airspace, and movement in and out of the territory. Since then, Gaza has been at the center of repeated conflict. Today, the conflict continues. There are ongoing tensions in Gaza and the West Bank. There are civilian casualties, blockades, and military operations. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed in cycles of escalation. Israel says it is defending itself. Palestinians say they are resisting occupation, and the world is watching. But in 2026, something new happened. Israel passed one of the most controversial laws in its modern history.
Israel's parliament on Monday passed a law making the death penalty the default sentence for Palestinians convicted of deadly attacks in military courts.
In practice, this law applies almost entirely to Palestinians. It allows executions to be carried out quickly, within about 90 days of sentencing, and in some cases removes traditional safeguards like unanimous court decision.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, meanwhile, condemned the legislation, saying it's a breach of international law and a doomed bid meant to intimidate Palestinians.
The law was strongly backed by figures like Itamar Ben-Gvir. Supporters say the goal is simple: deterrence. They argue that harsher punishment will prevent future attacks and protect Israeli civilians. But critics say something very different. Human rights groups, UN experts, and multiple countries have warned that the law is discriminatory and could violate international law. Because in practice, similar crimes committed by Jewish Israelis are not treated the same way, and many of these cases are handled in military courts, systems that Palestinians are subject to, but Israeli citizens are not. To critics, this creates what they call a two-tiered justice system, one set of laws for one group, another set for another. And that's where the comparison begins to intensify. In recent years, a controversial idea has spread across parts of the world, that Israel is becoming what it once suffered under.
It isn't a specific Jewish catastrophe with a concrete history, with like intent and mechanisms and specific people. It's a vague symbol of badness. It's a metaphor for oppression. It's a universal morality tale. It's detached from the Jews. It's detached from the actual Nazis, which is, of course, Holocaust inversion. It's the worst version of it, grotesque. But when everything is Nazism, you effing morons, nothing is.
Supporters of this comparison point to military control, civilian deaths, restrictions on movement, and unequal systems. They argue that the lessons of the Holocaust were meant to prevent this kind of situation. They say never again should apply to everyone, but Israel and its supporters strongly reject this comparison. They argue that what is happening today is not genocide, but war. Israel faces threats from groups like Hamas, which has carried out attacks against Israeli civilians. These include rocket attacks, kidnappings, and other acts of violence. Israeli leaders, including Benjamin Netanyahu, describe this as a fight for survival. Around the world, opinions are deeply divided. Some believe Israel is using excessive force and abusing its power. Others believe Israel is defending itself in a hostile region. Both sides point to history to support their views. The Holocaust remains a central reference point in this debate. Many argue that comparing modern conflicts to it risks distorting its meaning. Others argue that if warning signs are ignored, history does not need to repeat exactly to repeat. Public opinion is shifting, especially among younger generations. In many places, more people now sympathize with Palestinians. At the same time, knowledge about the Holocaust itself is declining. This creates a situation where history is used more, but understood less. So the question remains, are they the new Nazis, or is that comparison itself flawed? Because how we answer that question shapes how we understand both history and the present. and ultimately, how we respond to what is happening in the world today. If you found this video interesting, make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below what topic you want me to cover next.